Alright, imagine this. You've been using Ubuntu for a while now. It's stable, it's popular, it's basically the default answer whenever someone asks, which Linux distro should I start with? But here's the thing, just because Ubuntu is the most well-known doesn't mean it's the best fit for everyone anymore. In 2025, the Linux ecosystem has evolved massively. And there are several distributions out there that not only match Ubuntu, but in many ways outperform it depending on what you actually want from your system. So if you've ever felt like Ubuntu is a bit too heavy, too corporate, or just not exciting anymore, you're definitely not alone. Let's start by understanding why people are even looking beyond Ubuntu in the first place. Over the years, Ubuntu has made some decisions that haven't landed well with everyone. Things like pushing snap packages aggressively, slower startup times compared to lighter distros, and the growing sense that it's drifting away from the minimal, customizable spirit that drew many users to Linux in the first place. None of this makes Ubuntu bad, it's still a solid choice, but it opens the door to alternatives that might align better with different needs. Now, one of the first names that comes up when people talk about better than Ubuntu is Linux Mint, and honestly, it's easy to see why. Linux Mint is based on Ubuntu, but it feels like what Ubuntu used to be: clean, fast, and straightforward. It doesn't force snap on you, it comes with a more traditional desktop environment, and everything just works out of the box. If you're someone who prefers a Windows-like experience or you just don't want to spend time tweaking things, Mint feels incredibly polished. It's like Ubuntu, but without the baggage that some users complain about. Then there's Pop_OS, which has really carved out its own identity over the past few years. Developed by System76, this distro is especially popular among developers, creators, and gamers. One of the standout features is how well it handles GPUs, particularly if you're using NVIDIA hardware. Out of the box, you get excellent driver support, which is something Ubuntu sometimes struggles with, but what really sets Pop_OS apart is its workflow. The tiling window management features, the keyboard-driven navigation, and the overall performance make it feel modern and efficient. If you spend a lot of time multitasking or coding, this distro can genuinely boost your productivity. Now, if you want something that gives you complete control, then Arch Linux enters the conversation. Arch isn't for everyone, and that's important to say up front. It's not beginner-friendly in the traditional sense. You install it from scratch, you configure everything yourself, and there's a learning curve that can feel intimidating. But here's the payoff: you get a system that is exactly what you want and nothing more. No unnecessary packages, no forced decisions. And because it's a rolling release distro, you're always on the latest software. For people who enjoy learning how Linux works under the hood, Arch isn't just a distro, it's an experience. Of course, not everyone wants to build their system from the ground up, and that's where Manjaro comes in. Manjaro is based on Arch, but it removes a lot of the complexity. You still get access to the Arch user repository, which is one of the largest collections of Linux software out there, but with a much easier installation process and more stability. It's a great middle ground between Ubuntu's simplicity and Arch's flexibility. For many users in 2025, Manjaro hits that sweet spot perfectly. Another distro that deserves serious attention is Fedora. Fedora has always been a bit ahead of the curve when it comes to adopting new technologies. It's backed by Red Hat, which means it has strong enterprise roots, but it's also very much focused on the desktop experience. Fedora uses GNOME by default, like Ubuntu, but it feels cleaner and more streamlined. It doesn't rely on Snap, and it tends to integrate new features faster. If you want a modern Linux experience that stays close to upstream development, Fedora is a strong contender. And then there's Zorin OS, which is designed specifically for people transitioning from Windows or Mac OS. Zorin focuses heavily on user experience, offering layouts that mimic other operating systems so you feel at home right away. But it's not just about looks, it's also optimized for performance, especially on older hardware. If you've got an aging laptop that struggles with Ubuntu, Zorin might surprise you with how smooth it feels. It's one of those distros that quietly does everything right without demanding too much attention. For those who prioritize speed above everything else, lightweight distros like Ubuntu, or even something more minimal like OLX-Qt-based systems come into play. These are perfect for low-end machines or anyone who just wants a fast, responsive system without extra features. Ubuntu can sometimes feel bloated in comparison, especially if you don't need all the bundled software and services. Now let's talk about gaming, because this is an area where Linux has improved dramatically. Distros like Pop_OS and even Nobara Linux are pushing the boundaries here. They come pre-configured with tools like Proton, Wine, and optimized kernels, making it easier than ever to run Windows games on Linux. Ubuntu can handle gaming. Sure, but these specialized distros often provide a smoother experience right out of the box. In 2025, Linux gaming isn't just possible, it's genuinely competitive. Security and privacy are also big factors when choosing a distro. Some users are moving away from Ubuntu because they want something more minimal or less tied to a single company's ecosystem. Distros like Debian, which Ubuntu itself is based on, offer a more community-driven approach. Debian is incredibly stable and doesn't include unnecessary features, making it a favorite for servers and users who value reliability above all else. Another interesting trend is the rise of immutable distros like Fedora Silverblue. These systems are designed to be more secure and less prone to breaking. Instead of modifying the core system, you install applications in containers, which keeps everything isolated. It's a different way of thinking about Linux. And while it might not replace traditional distros for everyone, it shows where things are heading. So when you ask, is there something better than Ubuntu? The real answer is, it depends on what you need. If you want simplicity and familiarity, Linux Mint might feel better. If you want performance and a modern workflow pop, _OS could be the winner. If you want total control, Arch is unmatched. If you want a balance of power and ease, Manjaro is hard to beat. And if you want cutting-edge features with strong backing, Fedora stands out. The beauty of Linux in 2025 is that you're not locked into one choice. You can try multiple distros, switch between them, and find what works best for you. Ubuntu is still a great starting point, but it's no longer the only answer, and for many people, it's not even the best one anymore. At the end of the day, the best Linux distro isn't about popularity. It's about how well it fits your workflow, your hardware, and your preferences. And with so many incredible options available right now, there's never been a better time to explore beyond Ubuntu and discover what Linux really has to offer.